Okay, we're a few minutes past time, but we were making some clarifications here. Last June 15th meeting, we agreed to reconvene at 5:30 p.m. on today's date to continue after the public hearing was recessed at approximately 9:35 that night. It would appear we have a quorum. We see Clifton, Long, Vaughn, McClanahan, Webb, and Lapsey as being present, and having heard all or prior public testimony. Angela Lapsey is a new zoning board member that was approved at last night's county board meeting. And so she may participate in the discussion if she so wishes, but she will abstain from all voting because she was not present during the public testimony and she was not a zoning board member as of the public testimony. So welcome. Okay, all of public testimony has concluded, and so tonight it is deliberations only. Please remember to keep the discussion to the facts as they were presented to us during public testimony and limit personal comments. In the folders are your two findings of facts or text amendments to reference during our discussion, and there will be more explanation as to those two finding of facts as we go along. And we are ready to begin deliberations. Case number 22-19A, the petitioner, United Citizens of Tazewell County, proposed 6-month moratorium on the issuance of special use permits for WECS. And there's part A, B, C, and D. Is there a motion to get 22-19A on the floor? Okay, Vaughn moved. Vaughn seconded. Okay, so the 6-month moratorium is on the floor and we are open for discussion. Vaughn made the motion. I don't know if you want to start, but you have that opportunity.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, make sure your green light's on.
I guess I'll start. With as complicated as this issue appears to me to be, I believe that we just need to give the county board and ourselves a chance to step back, take a look at what's been presented to us over the last several evenings. And I think we should look to the county board to give us direction on how they want us to move forward, because I don't think what we have is adequate for the county for us to make a good decision on what will impact property values possibly or people's lives over the foreseeable future.
Okay. Other discussion? Yes.
Yes, on section A, I had a question for the attorney. He has written here the operation or modification in many ways. I questioned him if he meant the current police that are in service are supposed to shut down. So that needs to be stricken from that section A.
Okay, he's looking at that, but if I remember the discussion correctly, it's the current one is grandfathered in under the current code, and they still have to abide by the current code that is in effect now. And it's not, if this correct me if I'm wrong, if this moratorium passes, the old code is still in effect, and the current wind farms still have to abide by that code. This is for the issuance of permits. Okay, so was there one term? It said development, placement, construction, operation, or modification. Is that what you were referring to?
The operation or modification. Existing windmills, if they need to modify or operate for 6 months. I just wanted to make that clear.
Okay, I interpret it, and I'm not an attorney, as the operation or modification of a wind farm in the proposed, in the proposed permit that they would be asking for.
I guess I don't know whether they occasionally need, whether wind farms that are already operating might need permits to, if they need to renew permits with community development for the purpose of anything that they do. I mean, I don't think there's a whole lot of downside in amending this provision, even though you're right, they would be grandfathered in, but just to make that clear, you know, to say that this provision shall not be construed to affect any WEX that's in existence in the county as of June 30th, 2022, or something along those lines.
Okay, he had some legal jargon there for you. Are you interested in making that as an amendment, or does that answer your questions, or?
I just want to make sure that it's not affecting the screen. And I asked the attorney that, he said, it shouldn't be in there. So,
Right, and that's the way I understood it as well. And the moratorium is basically just for the issuance of permits. If someone would come and want to develop a new one within that 6 months. Okay, other questions, comments? Yes.
Do you have that wrote down, Jackie? Would you read that, please, how it ended up?
You're going to include the provision is not construed to affect wind farms currently in operation.
But we don't have that on the floor. He did not choose to make that amendment.
That's a motion, right? So we can-
I will gladly
But turn your mic on.
endorse that amendment.
Okay, so are you amending that to include, and I'm gonna have her read that.
The provision is not construed to affect wind farms currently in operation.
Yes, I will make that amendment.
Okay, so now we've got that amendment. Is there a second to that amendment? Okay, Vaughn seconded. And so now it's discussion just on this amendment. Okay? And Bill brought it up. I think that helps clarify that the current operational wind farm is still operational.
yes, I think.
Okay? Other discussion? Are we ready to vote on the amendment? Okay,
The addition of that one sentence to the moratorium, the proposed moratorium.
yes,
And not on the whole text amendment. is what-
correct. We're only voting to add that sentence to the moratorium. Okay? If you vote yes, that means you're in favor of the wording, the one sentence. If you vote no, that means you're not in favor of that sentence. And we will have typically on amendments, we do voice votes, we'll do a roll call vote.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Clifton,
Yes.
McClanahan, Vaughn,
Yes.
Webb,
Yes.
Chairman Leslie.
Yes. Okay, so the 6-month moratorium is amended as we just discussed, okay? And we pretty much hit section A. Other discussion on section A, B, C, or D? Okay, you guys all want, yes.
Could I have the attorney tell me what C means? I want that clarified, please.
That's a great question.
Thank you.
So the relevant paragraph reads, all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with these provisions are repealed. And yes, I don't know whether that is really something we want to have in there, if this is intended to be a temporary measure. I think the other provisions make pretty clear what the effect of the moratorium is intended to be in terms of preventing the issuance of permits so that the board can further investigate what the updated ordinance should say. I guess I would suggest to make the intent of that part more clear that perhaps instead of saying those provisions are repealed, we should either say that their enforcement is suspended, or maybe we should just do away with that paragraph C altogether.
In looking at it while you're explaining it, that's what I'm under the, part C should probably be eliminated because it's very, I'm going to call it ambiguous or
Very broad, and probably, I mean, and unnecessary, because it's, I mean, that's the natural effect of passing an amendment is to,
right.
suspend, to change the effects of existing provisions. But I don't think it's necessary to affect what the moratorium is designed to do. It would just introduce more confusion, so I guess my advice would be to remove that provision.
Okay, board members, you've heard the discussion. What's your preference?
Make a motion to remove that sentence.
Okay, Webb moves to remove section C. Clifton seconded it. Further discussion?
When I spoke to the attorney originally, he almost said, well, these are kind of both the same together, so it's almost like section C was referring to the next one. It's kind of have a block together, so I think we should just remove that, would just clarify this isn't.
Okay. Other discussion? have you rephrase it and make it an amendment to remove section C. Because you just said we need to amend it to remove section C because we want to keep the other parts active.
Am I off now?
I'd like to make the amendment to remove section C.
Okay, and Clifton, you seconded it. Do you agree with that amendment? Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, so like before, we're going to have a roll call vote. And if you support this amendment to remove section C, your vote will be yes. And if you want to leave section C in, your vote would be no. And so we will have a roll call vote.
Clifton? McManahan? Vaughn?
Yes.
Webb?
Yes.
Vaughn?
Yes.
Yes. That amendment passes and section C is removed. Okay, and then section D refers to after the county board makes a decision, what their obligations are to inform the public as to how the outcome of that vote came out. Do I understand that right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, any further discussion on the 6-month moratorium? We've got 2 amendments to it. The first is that the provision is not construed to affect wind farms currently in operation. That was the first amendment. The second amendment then deleted section C. And do we have any further discussion on the 6-month moratorium as amended? Yes, Russ.
Right, is ZBA finished with their inquiry?
I don't understand your question.
Well, if I'm a county board, I don't go in front of them, so I want to wait till they're done.
Okay. What he's asking is, do you guys have any more questions at this point? At this point, it doesn't appear they have any more questions.
Well, this question is either for you, Chairman Lesson, or for Attorney Drake. If this is successful, the moratorium, and I support it, my question is, if the ZBA wants to dispatch any changes to the ordinance prior to the 6 months ending of the moratorium, may they do so? Or must they wait the entire 6 months? That's my question. Thank you.
Just like any other provision of the code, the moratorium can be amended or removed by subsequent vote.
Okay, so the way I would look at it parliamentary wise, we're only making a recommendation. The county board has final authority. So to give you an example, the county board may amend it and insert 3 instead of 6, or insert X number of months, or until a new code is proposed, or any other one of a number of options, because that's up to the county board. That makes sense?
Thank you.
Okay, back to zoning. Any other questions on or comments on 2219A, the moratorium as amended? There, technical difficulties. Let's give them a minute. This happens every so often at our zoning meetings, and I always accuse them of not feeding the squirrels that are turning the wheel. Yeah. We're okay. Yeah, it is. Okay. Square lot. I will feel way in the back of this. But he's on that reason. What is it? Shut everything down. It was time to make adjustments. You got another problem. I'm still in bed.
Yeah. And you're saying the key accounting firm.
Yeah, listen to that hearing. I know they had a power outage or something. I don't know, because they had discussed a 6-month moratorium and they amended it a couple times. They're getting ready to vote on the amendment, and now they're wasting time. They have not voted on the amended to do the 6-month moratorium. They took one section out and then they just said added something that said it only applied to
and so
new
what we're
construction.
doing is actually making a recording of tonight's meeting, just like the previous ones were recorded, and then eventually they go up on the county website. And my understanding is you can get to them through a YouTube video to see the progression of things. So zoning board members, back to the 2219A 6-month moratorium. Section A has already been amended to include that it does not affect wind farms currently in operation. Section C has been amended by striking that section. Is there any further discussion on 2219A? Okay. Are we ready to vote? Okay, we will call the question on 2219A as amended. Well, okay. And you need to understand that the vote is for a recommendation that will proceed through land use and final authority at county board. Okay, the two findings of facts to be met are the proposed amendment shall not be detrimental to the orderly development of the county. And I think as Todd talked, that it's a complex situation. We need to evaluate our current code and other options for updating the code, etc. That this would provide an approximate timeline to help accomplish that. Okay. Other discussion on that finding of fact number 1. Okay, finding of fact number 2 is the proposed amendment shall not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the county. A lot of the same findings is it's complicated, and by putting new on hold, the public has been involved and the county is going to be involved, and we're going to try and through this process, come up for what's the best general welfare of the county and its citizens. Any discussion on the finding of fact? You got what you need? Okay, we're going to do this first. All those in favor of the findings of facts as discussed, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The findings of facts are approved, and we will call the question on the 6-month moratorium as amended. A yes vote means we recommend it as amended to the county board. A no vote means we do not recommend it. Roll call.
Long,
Yes.
Clifton,
Yes.
McClanahan. Vaughn,
Yes.
Webb, Chairman Lester.
Yes. Okay, 2219A is recommended as amended. Okay, the second case tonight is 22-20A, United Citizens of Tazewell County. With a new text proposal for wind energy systems in the county. I'm not going to read the whole thing. We've got several pages there. Is there a motion to get 22-20A on the table? Okay, Vaughn moved. Webb seconds. Okay, discussion on the United Citizens proposed new code. I don't know how you want to proceed with this. Section by section, or my personal feeling is that because of the complicated nature and of the volume of information, unless it's something specific that you're really in favor of or against, that we not do a lot of amendments to it. We need to discuss all the various sections, but my personal feeling is probably a little too early on amendments because it still has to go through land use, it still has to go through county board, and it's a recommendation process. And so eventually, if a new code is updated, it's going to come back to us for public comment and everything at that time again anyway. And so, comments? Todd?
So in all the discussion, United Citizens legal representation, I think he discussed the fact that they proposed this to us, but they were open for possibility of changes. That this wasn't all encompassing for a final product, if I understood it correctly. And I think some of their members of that group, when they talked in front of us, said the same thing. They're not entirely opposed. They just want to make sure there's plenty of safeguards in place. This document, as we see it right now, makes it pretty tough to put a wind tower anywhere in the country, to be quite honest with you, with the setbacks that they laid out here. So again, I think this is for the county board to decide for us what they want us to enforce. We certainly can make our recommendations, but I think the county board needs to take a long, hard look at this document, what they have, and come up with a solution somewhere from one end to the other. I don't know where that end is. I won't call it necessarily the middle because I think it's going to go one way or the other. I don't think it'll land right. I think that's the way we need to move forward is tell county board, tell us what you want us to do. And I'll go on the record here tonight and tell you, I'd be glad to work with the county board or members of the county board. If they want my personal input, I will sit down and go through it with them and make my thoughts known on how it should be. So.
Okay, I got that same impression because I'm going to refer to the attorney's closing comments, and we can look it up, it's in the transcript, that he said, well, I don't know, 3,000 feet is the appropriate setback. I don't know if 2,000 feet is the appropriate setback, and I don't know if those were the exact figures that he used, but yes, and then in questioning him on certain other things, why do you want to make a chip and gravel road currently, renew it after the wind farm's done up to an 80,000 pound road? That's, from a zoning aspect, that's poor zoning. You've got a section of 80,000 pound road that is not accessible by any other 80,000 pound road. So yes, there are things in there that are not I don't know what the term I want to use, but
Not in the best interest of the county as a whole.
or the citizens.
Or the citizens, yeah.
Right.
Because if you build an 8,000 pound road, you got to maintain it.
Yes, yes. And exactly from your opening comment was, if this was approved as written, there's not one tract of ground in Tazewell County that would meet these requirements. And so section E of their thing says they want to promote the supply of wind energy in support of the Illinois statutory goals, but yet the restrictions are so strict that not one tract of ground meets their requirements. So. Okay.
Yeah. The other thing I worry about a little bit now that we're talking is that if all the counties get so restrictive, at some point the state's going to stand up and say, counties, you no longer have any say in it. We'll do it by let the state deal with it. And then we'll be forced to have things that we may necessarily not like.
Possibly. Other questions, comments? Yes.
So if we vote on this, like if we vote that we are in favor of recommending this, it would go just as it is.
Just as it is.
So if we vote that we all agree that we need to update ours, but maybe not as stringent, so then we would want to vote no, correct?
That's correct. If I understand your question right. Yeah, because a yes vote means we would recommend this verbiage to the county.
Okay.
Okay. And yes, there's a lot of things, and I appreciate your input as, being willing to help develop new codes, and you've got land use, and I know land use already started discussing updating codes, especially the wind code, but they put everything on hold when this was proposed.
Jackie, does it fall back to your department to do a lot of that for this?
Typically, yeah. Staff will develop with input from parties. We look at all our surrounding counties. We do all the research. And then we take it to land use committee for discussion. Once they're okay with it, as it's provided, then it would.
Other comments, questions, ideas? Yes, Russ?
I agree with everything that you said, Chairman Weston, and everything that Todd said. But and I also agree with what several of the ZBA members have said, and it is that we county board members, and I really can only speak for myself, but I have a tendency to think that there's a lot more people that disagree. We don't want to end economic development with regards to wind farms in Tazewell County. On the other hand, we believe that the current ordinance is insufficient in terms of being protective of the citizens of Tazewell County. That being said, I'm really proud of the fact that a lot of the land use committee members have been to every one of these hearings and sat through from 5:30 to sometimes 11 o'clock at night. However, I don't care whether it's the ZBA or it's the zoning department, but I, as one member of land use and the county board, are looking for specific recommendations as to where the sweet spot is. Because the truth is, if we in the land use committee, or God forbid, the whole county board, starts to roll up our sleeves and go through this stuff, that's just unhellish nightmare. And so I really would appreciate, and that's not to say the land use or the county board or both won't make modifications, we probably will. But we'd like that straw man to see what the recommendation is rather than starting from scratch. So if Jackie's office is willing to do that, that's great. If not, I would hope the ZBA would give us more than just a sort of a generic thing that's going to shut down wind farms in Tazewell County. Thanks.
Okay. Yes.
I would like to say that if you vote this down tonight, that the land use and the zoning department and the rest of the county board, and as Russ said, I can only speak for myself. But I do think that we will take into consideration a lot of things on these amendments that they're wanting this new tax to take in a lot of their suggestions and bring them forward, that we won't just scrap them and really start from scratch. I think we just need to build on and update for what we do have in processes right now. And that's the only comment I got. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the evenings of testimony, we received a ton of information. There's a part of it set right there. But one thing that we did receive, and whoever works on it, and I want to agree that our code needs to be worked on, but we did receive several other counties' codes. And I've read through them, and there's bits and pieces in them that we might be able to pull from whoever works on it. But that some of the counties that have changed their codes, and there's information we can draw off of there.
Okay. Yes.
So I think, we all can agree that it needs to be changed. I mean, what is in place definitely is not
Up to date.
Yeah, so we need it to be up to date for sure. The only thing that I can say sitting through all this is that we heard, the people of Tazewell County, and we heard from the wind energy company. But on my take, I just didn't feel like the wind energy company were like, it was just all or nothing. Like, they were like, no, if we don't have it this way, then we are no longer going to be able to, continue with, the wind and energy farm. And so on that end of it, it kind of just had a little in my brain, because I just feel like they really did not even produce us with anything that they were willing to budge on. Like, what would work for them? I mean, it was either what's in place now or nothing. You know what I'm saying?
I understand, and I'm not speaking for the wind company, but they can only respond to the petition. And so they were responding to the setbacks and the things that were in this. You can only testify for it. Yes.
I understand that now. It's just, I mean, it just.
Right. I understand that feeling that you have.
Decisions, and it's, I mean, I feel like we're throwing it off of our hip.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that.
Right.
Make whatever decisions we, this is,
Yeah.
I've learned a lot through all this. And, it's been stressful and, you want to do right by everybody. Somewhere along the line, somebody's not going to. And, I just feel like we need to make the best decision. And I just feel like I don't have enough information on the other side either. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right. And I think that's what Mr. Emmy was talking about is by looking at other counties and their zoning code and, they got X number of feet for a setback or this, but yet they're still developing wind energy systems. That's kind of a guideline as to, maybe this wind company doesn't like that setback, but another one maybe does. I'm just throwing out examples.
Right, I understand. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to go back to Russ Crawford's comments, and I gathered you want a little bit of insight, okay? I personally have problems with a couple different sections of this, and I don't think we need to be redundant. On the first page here, A1 and A2 zoning, 75% of the sites having less than 125. And you were the proponent of that prime agricultural. But our policy has been, because it takes a relatively small footprint, whether it's A1 or A2 or B soils, we have approved them in the past, but then they go on to, in my opinion, excessively say the soils will be tested within a quarter mile, 1,320 feet of said, where the said turbine is to be erected. We have wonderful soil maps in Tazewell County that are very accurate, that show the different types of soils and productivity and why sample it all just to be sampling it. And so that, to me, that's one of the excessive things. The other one that, in my opinion, I'm looking on page 4, section D. And in my personal opinion, they should never be in any code, in any government situation whatsoever. The applicant, upon submittal of an application, put up $100,000 payable to Tazewell County, put in an FDIC money market account, and then they went on use it for this and this and this and this. And cash and government do not go together. And for those people that are in my decade, when I first read this, the first thing that popped into my mind was Paul Powell shoebox. And it's like, I'm sure Jackie doesn't want the hassle of $100,000. And do we pay this bill out of it or that bill? And what experts and what attorneys get access to this fund and that fund and so on and so forth? It's just, it sounds bad all the way around. I do agree, and I think the land use committee started this already. The decommissioning costs needs to be updated. And it probably needs to be put in the policy that the county board or somebody's going to review it every 3 years or 5 years or something like that. Not just, oh, we're going to let it go until the next wind farm wants to be built. And so, I also am a proponent of rather than feet of distance, it's, I believe our current code says tower height times a number, like 1.1 or 1.2 or something like that, rather than a flat, it's got to be X number of feet, okay? And my thinking behind this is everything gets more efficient, okay? And we heard some testimony that the taller towers have efficiency that if we want to generate X number of megawatts on a certain size tower, we got to have 25 of them. But if we have bigger towers, we only need 20 or 15, and so on and so forth. And so as technology increases, I don't think we want to restrict the technology that may be available. I know the farmers do not want to restrict the technology that is available to them. And it has not happened in Tazewell County. And I have had discussions with other county zoning departments and more particularly at the township level. They want to restrict track-type tractors on their roads. And that's one of our most efficient uses, low square inch for compaction, efficiency, et cetera. And I think the farmers want access to good technology. And so the wind companies ought to be able to have good technology as well. You know, the turbine location, if it's moved more than 50 feet, then you got to start the whole application process over again. It's just, it doesn't make common sense. There was a second part on fees that they wanted another $100,000 deposited when they submitted their application. Well, we don't charge, well, we have a fee structure. If you're going to apply for this, this is the fee. If you're going to apply for that, that's the fee. It's straight up front. You know, to put up another 100,000 just to cover the cost of 3 or 4 or 5 hearings, how much should we have charged the United Citizens to hear their request? And so there's some things like that that I don't think are good code situations. Okay, other ideas, thoughts? Yes.
But doing that exactly what I meant by my comments about input from ZBA or the zoning office. I've taken notes on all 6 of those items. I'm not sure I got them exactly right, but I want to invite whatever the record says that Dwayne says to be communicated to the land use committee and the county board. But I also want to invite any member of the zoning board of appeals to also, if you don't hammer out some recommendation tonight, and I understand the advantages and disadvantages, it's more of an advantage for you tonight not to do it, and more of an advantage to us if you do it. But somebody's got to do it. And so I want to make sure if you don't do it, that you still send any input that you want us to consider to us, maybe go through the zoning office, and so we can get that, because there's still a lot of heavy lifting left to do. Thanks.
Okay, zoning board members, questions, comments? Bill?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything you said. There's just, when I originally read through this, I came up with the same thing everybody else did. Follow this, would there be another? And then when you drive around the county, you see the sign that say no turn. Say no turn. Then the attorney said, well, it's not no turns, it's just, you just want to change it. Well, you want to change it to no turns. But I think every section, like you just talked about too, and I did the same thing. 125 going to 1,820 feet of tower. You know, and and recently, last week I went over my list. There's some towers stacked up close there. Normal. And I went up to the bottom of some of those, listening to noise. You could hear a blade whooshing by. But that was all you heard. Yeah, I guess there's a lot of things with this that just.
We have to be careful about introducing new facts at this stage. You know, we have to limit our consideration to stuff that was presented in evidence during the hearing.
Anyway, I would think that the zoning department could, like she said, go with the other counties, what they've recommended or what they've approved. Look at what Citizens United turned into.
They got some good points in there.
We do, but we can sit here and discuss them. I think.
And it's still going to be a recommendation.
Yeah, I think like Russ said, if we just let them do some of the heavy work in the front, especially with land use members, we should they come up with some proof.
Okay. Other comments, questions? Okay, we have 2 findings of facts for codes. Okay, so for 2220A, which is their proposed code amendment, which is to strike our current code and insert their code in place of it. This proposed amendment shall not be detrimental to the orderly development of the county. So as per our discussion, it would be detrimental to the orderly development of the county because it would essentially stop wind energy in the county. There's no one single tract that it would qualify. There's some extreme items in there that the county, I don't think, should be dealing with, so on and so forth. Other findings that you may have or think of. So it's basically a negative finding. Okay, number 2 gets a little more ambiguous, and I may have the attorney help explain this a little better, but the proposed amendment shall not be detrimental to or endanger the public's health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the county. And so, you want to simplify that, or,
I don't know how much I can simplify it, but I just think, it's important to remember that the petitioners have the burden of demonstrating these things to you. It's a highly technical area, so that's a difficult burden to carry. And after hearing all the testimony and evidence, if you're not persuaded that whether this amendment would endanger the public health or safety or general welfare of the county, then I think you would consider findings on this point to be negative. It's the petitioners who have to persuade you. And if they haven't persuaded you, then it would be a negative finding.
okay, so like it was stated earlier, we've heard a lot of technical information, okay? And me personally, the technical information, I don't think has swayed me one way or another, okay? So with it being a complex and a lot of technical and a lot of details in the code amendments, specific setbacks, et cetera, so on and so forth, in my opinion, it would be negative because we would not be doing the county or its citizens right by just blankly recommending approval. Because we heard from citizens that are in support of wind energy. We heard from citizens that are against wind energy. We heard from citizens that want wind energy, but in a reliable, respectable manner. And so that's how I interpret it in my mind as negative. Does that make sense? Zoning, what's your thoughts? Todd?
Wayne, I think I have to agree with you 100% what you just said. There is a lot of technical information. Lord knows they killed a lot of trees to get to this point. And we, I guess, the zoning board, the land use committee, and the county need to take the time to digest all this and look at facts that were presented to us here and come up with something that works, I think. If we approve this tonight and send it on to the county board, I think we're the welfare of the county as a whole.
Okay. Other questions, comments on the findings of facts? He's still writing here, so.
God bless.
Okay, so as discussed so far on this petition, the two findings that we've had have been negative findings of facts. Okay, any further discussion on the findings of facts? Okay, we're gonna take a voice vote here on the findings of fact. A yes vote means you agree with the negative findings as discussed. A no vote means that you do not agree with the negative findings. Okay. You might do a roll call or voice? Roll call. Okay. On the findings, this is on the findings, the negative findings of fact.
Clifton,
Yes.
Flanagan, Vaughn,
Yes.
Webb,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Chairman Linder.
Yes. Okay, we've got the findings of fact out of the way. Zoning board, Last opportunity for discussion on 22-20A. Okay, so, we're going to do a roll call vote on 22-20A here in a minute. So a yes means you recommend their proposal to the county. A no means you do not recommend their proposal to the county. Any questions? Okay, we'll have a roll call vote.
McClanahan? Bond?
No.
Webb?
No.
Baum?
No.
Clifton?
No.
Chairman Lasser?
No. We're not recommending 22-20-A to the county. Okay, that concludes tonight's meeting. Zoning board, we've got what, next Wednesday is our regular, what is that? 6th. We're normally the 5th, but because the 4th is a holiday and we got to post 24 hours prior,